Hello, I'm Alex Londos, owner of the company Advanced Disaster Relief. It's an international disaster relief company. So this is a project update on the mass tire removal I took on approximately 3 years ago. So I want to clarify some stuff. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people don't know the full story, so I want to not only give an update on the current situation, I want to straighten some things out. So approximately 3 years ago, I was coming back from Garden of Eden, which is a swimming hole in the Henry Cow redwood forest, and I was coming along these tracks headed back to Santa Cruz, California. So I was going this way. This is approximately a mile from the Santa Cruz city limits and 2 miles from Santa Cruz. So that's Highway 9 right there. This is where the train tracks cross Highway 9, approximately 2 miles up Highway 9. So I was walking this way with my bike, and I was kind of curious because I saw some sort of water redirection system over there. I saw this retaining wall on this side, and I was kind of curious, so I walked over here, get a nice view. Maybe I was taking pictures, and I looked down because I enjoy the redwood forest, enjoy nature and exploring, and I looked down this way and I saw a couple tires, and I looked closer and I saw more. They were covered with leaves and branches, but I saw a few dozen tires, so I was curious why they were there. I didn't think they belonged there. You know, we're in the redwood forest. Tires are not used for any type of retaining wall anymore. We haven't used that for a while. Once we, as a society, realize that tires are toxic and they pose more hazardous threats than environmental solutions. So I came this way and I was curious, so I went down to investigate how many tires were there. I ended up seeing that there wasn't just a couple dozen, there was a couple hundred. So I realized I couldn't just do it on my own. I couldn't just move them up onto the street, and even if I did, they would just be left on the side of the road. I didn't want to just leave some tires on the side of the road because that's a whole nother issue. So I ended up contacting the county. I went down to the county building and I went to the 3rd floor, which is some sort of like environmental agency floor, and I asked to speak to someone that would help me out with this. So I met a county official. I told him about the problem, and later that day, or the next day, we took a county vehicle and we came all the way up here. We parked just down the street, we walked down here, and we saw that there was all these tires, and there was a lot of tires. So it was a big issue, and I told him that I wanted to do a project. It was going to be one of the largest environmental projects that I've done, but I was confident that I would be able to move these tires with some volunteers, maybe get a couple sponsors. And it was something that I wanted to take care of because the county deals with their own issues, and I like doing environmental projects. I like getting stuff done. I like doing beach cleanups, environmental cleanups. And so I ended up talking to him, and I said, how about if I get the volunteers together and you can provide the dumpster, so we can move the tires into the dumpster and they can be taken to the dump and recycled correctly. So the next day, he ended up calling me up, and then he ended up saying, yeah, I can provide the dumpster for you. He also did some research into the lines, because this is a cross section on a lot of different boundaries. So we have Pogo Nip on one side, there is Henry Cow Redwood Forest on the other, there's some private property back there, there's a Masonic Club property in this area, there's city property, there's Highway 9, and then there's also the train tracks. So the train tracks own, you know, the property along the train tracks. So he ended up saying, yeah, it's county property, it's no problem, I'll provide the dumpster, and you can get the volunteers together. So I said, okay, cool, give me a few days. So within a couple days, I did a Facebook post that was shared hundreds of times, thanks to the power of social media. And I was able to organize a lot of volunteers. So I got 30 volunteers together, maybe it was 35 volunteers. They came through. I ended up getting some sponsors. So Mission Street Ice Cream donated a lot of free ice cream tickets, so that was extra incentive for some volunteers to come down and help with this project. One of the bakeries, I think it was Emily's Bakery, donated a lot of pastries and croissants, and Cafe Gratitude donated a large volume of healthy organic food. So the volunteers showed up, just like I said, with maybe some safety goggles and some work gloves and some food and some snacks and some water to stay hydrated and some, you know, work shoes and different things that they would need to take on this project. So they showed up and we assessed the situation, what route was the easiest way to walk down here, how it was gonna, how we were gonna do this project. So we ended up having some rope and a rappelling clip. So we had people standing up on the top, and we would throw the rope down over that edge, and we would attach a tire, sometimes as much as 3 or 4 tires, onto it, and we would pull the tires up that retaining wall to the other side. And then we would take them in a wheelbarrow or walk them down to the truck or trucks that we had positioned close to the road. And then the trucks would drive them approximately a quarter mile to where the cargo shipping container style dumpster was, to where we would drop off the tires into that dumpster. And then once it was full, it would be taken away and dealt with. So we had different systems. Sometimes we would grab some of these tires and some people would just walk them up to the left. Sometimes they would walk them up to the right. Some people would take different routes. So the volume of tires down here when we started this project was much, much higher. So right now, this is what's left of the tires. So we never were able to complete this project. The tires actually came up all the way to the bottom underneath that tree, and it filled in this whole area. There was a large volume of tires. So we removed hundreds of tires each day. It was a lot of fun. It was hard work. There was a lot of times where I was down here close to dusk by myself, just digging these tires out, you know, sometimes with a shovel, sometimes with my bare hands, and carrying them up. I wanted to finish this project. And the more we dug, the more tires we would find. So we thought we would find the bottom, and we just kept finding more tires, and we were shocked with the large volume. So we filled up the dumpster, hundreds of tires each day. We kept just finding more tires. More volunteers continued to show up. A lot of people were helpful. People were really coming together. The Santa Cruz Sentinel did a news story on this project. The Good Times did a news story. I think it made it on the front page of the Good Times that time, or the second time. Made it in the front page of the Santa Cruz Sentinel. KSBW was interested in doing a story. It was continuing to inspire people to do environmental cleanups and work to make their community a better place and come together and just get something done. So we removed 1,000 tires from this area and filled up the dumpster. I forgot to mention, once the first dumpster was full, it was all the way full, we couldn't fit any more tires into it, we actually called the county, and they came and they took that dumpster and brought us another dumpster. So we filled up a whole cargo shipping container style dumpster, a 20-foot long dumpster with tires, and it was taken away. We were dropped off another dumpster. So we continued to work. So that was within 5 days, and it was only like a week and a half after I first saw these tires. So this was getting done at a very productive and efficient rate. So on day 5, we're feeling accomplished, we're successful, we're seeing the end of these tires. We know that they don't belong here. Tires pose a lot of risk. They're a breeding ground for rats and varmints. They hold water in the bottom. It's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. There's a lot of toxins and pollutants and chemicals that leach out of tires and leach into the ground right here. But that's not even the worst part of it. One, like, let's say, so we're in the forest, and there's a lot of potential for forest fires in this area because, you know, it's a redwood forest. There's a lot of homeless people in this area. Tires are extremely flammable. Someone could come down here and maybe drop a cigarette, throw a cigarette off that edge. It's going to catch some of those leaves on fire and completely engulf this large volume. And so there's laws where legally you can't even transport tires if it's more than 100, and you have to have a manifest to transport it. And I think legally you can't have more than 500 tires without, like if you're at an automotive shop, without a special permit, because they are so dangerous and they catch fire and they're so toxic and polluting, especially if they catch fire, and all of that goes into the atmosphere. So all of these tires are really close to the San Lorenzo River, which is only 1,000 feet right down there, and that's where we get 70 to 80% of our drinking water. Where Santa Cruz gets the majority of their drinking water comes from the San Lorenzo River, and these tires are that close. So if there was a fire, all of what's left of the tires, all of those toxins, when it rains, would wash down this all the way down to the San Lorenzo River. So that was extremely concerning for me. It was also concerning because they're not natural. They're derived from fossil fuels. They don't belong in our environment. People used to use tires for retaining walls, and they would use them in harbors and try to make reefs with them, but we don't do that anymore. And we're extracting them from all those areas because we have new scientific information and studies that they don't belong in the natural environment. So we were successfully moving tires as a team, feeling accomplished, getting sponsors to provide us food, working together, coming down here and feeling like we were making the world a better place. It wasn't until day 5 that we were in this area working, And a blue truck pulled up right up there. It pulled up along the tracks. And this guy walked over and he said, "What are you doing? This is our property. This is a Masonic Club property. You need to get off or I'm going to call the police." This guy was extremely upset and aggressive. He was concerned because we were on his property. So he said, "You can't move any more tires. This project is done. This is our property and you have to leave." He also got some information from us. I wanted to finish this project because it was my project. I took it on. And this was interfering with getting these out of the redwood forest. They don't need to be here. So I can see at one time maybe they were dumped here for whatever reason, but they don't need to be here now. So there's a large Masonic community just down further, which is approximately 1,200 feet away, down at the bottom, close to the San Lorenzo River, right down there. So he was a part of that. So that's when the project got complicated. I was told by... that's when the red tape came in. That's when lawyers got involved. That's when I was threatened. That's when I was given an ultimatum and a paper to sign. That's when I was told that I couldn't come back and people were questioned and people were threatened. That's when my volunteers got scared that we were doing this to make the world a better place and the project was completely stopped. So the Masonic Club, we had a couple meetings, were telling me that it was their property. They dumped these tires here approximately 35 years ago. They did it as erosion control. Now, we don't do it that way anymore in America. Some other countries still do that, but we don't do that here. Anytime people did use erosion control in the US, we're now pulling those tires out of those areas because we deem those as more hazardous than the environmental benefits they provide for that particular area. So, the Masonic Club admitted, I'm going to repeat myself, the Masonic Club came down and admitted to dumping these tires 35 years ago. So the project was stopped. I was criticized. I was hassled and harassed for doing this project without the correct permits and paperwork and permission. Even though we came to the conclusion that this was county property and they didn't need to be here. There was a very clear retaining wall right there. And there was no reason. They're a fire hazard, and they're close to our drinking water. So I was upset because I wasn't able to just be done with this project. I put a lot of effort and time. I dedicated my life towards this project. There was other disasters going on around the world that I wanted to be focused on, things that I wanted to complete, things that I wanted to do. There was other hurricanes going on and humanitarian issues that I could have been focusing my time and attention. Ebola was just starting to spread around Africa, West Africa, that I wish I could have been a part of the solution. But instead, I was dealing with this red tape and the Masonic Club and different issues with that. So the Santa Cruz Sentinel did another story. I'm sorry, I'm going to correct myself. They didn't do a story until later. It was... Okay, the Santa Cruz Sentinel or the Good Times, they did another story, and it was an update, and it was talking about the Masonic Club and how it was their property. They dumped the tires, and they were trying to, sue me and sue the county, and it got really complicated. So I got frustrated. I didn't want to sign their paper. I wanted to complete my project, and I just got so sick of dealing with it that I felt that the people suffering from Ebola in Ghana and suffering from Ebola in West Africa was a more pressing matter. So I flew to Ghana during the peak of the Ebola outbreak and I tried to help out there. I would have gone there sooner and I would have been more focused if I wasn't completely distracted by this project and all of the hassle that it caused me and created in my life. So the project was stopped. I never signed their paper. They never cleaned up the tires. There was a lot of volunteers that were concerned and confused what happened with the project. And so I went and I covered the Ebola outbreak in Ghana. I went and covered the earthquake after Nepal, covered a couple of superstorms in some other countries, did some other environmental projects, humanitarian projects, focused on my company, did some other stuff. So it was approximately a year or 2 years later that there was new information in, and I don't remember how this happened. I think that the Santa Cruz Sentinel contacted me because they were doing a follow-up story. I think that's how it happened. And they ended up finding out that this whole time, this property was not county property. This property was not the property of the Masonic Club, that it was actually city property. And that's where a lot of people still don't understand that it was never county property. It was never the Masonic Club's property. It was actually city property. No one knew that until recently, until I think someone from the Santa Cruz Sentinel did some more research. That changed everything. That means that the tires should have been removed. They're no longer on private property. The Masonic Club had no grounds to try to sue me or the county or to get me to sign any type of crazy paperwork they were trying to get me to sign. And it proved the Masonic Club admitted to dumping these tires here, that they were using them for erosion control. So after that, they ended up explaining that there was a large landslide that happened here a couple decades ago. And it may have killed some people, but I know it destroyed a lot of homes down in the Masonic village or their little community down there. So that's what they were concerned about. But whenever there's a landslide, most of the time, they're not in the same place multiple times. Because once all the topsoil and the loose soil that is saturated with water it slides, it's not going to slide in that particular area. So I guess there was a large landslide here, and that's why they, out of fear, put these tires here. So it wasn't until a decade or two later that this retaining wall was built. And I actually had someone from Roaring Camp come in and talk about this and how it was constructed and how it was basically built indestructible. And those pilings go 20, 30 feet into the ground. It's really strong. It could handle a 100 or 1,000 year flood. So these tires no longer have to be here. The Masonic Club and the county were still concerned about why they were here. So someone, I don't remember if it was the county or the Masonic Club or if they split the charge or if it was paid through insurance, but they paid an independent geologist to come out here and do a survey. That survey cost approximately $10,000, and they surveyed this whole area. They surveyed the dirt, the ground, the retaining wall, how the water was redirected and now goes down that pipe on that side. And they came to the conclusion that these tires no longer have to be here, that they were put here out of fear after the first landslide, but they didn't have to be here anymore. So everything that I said and everything that I thought, everything that anyone that just comes to this area and looks and sees these tires here, sees the retaining wall, sees that the ground is relatively stable, would know that those tires don't have to be here. But they wanted a professional opinion, so he came to the conclusion that the tires could be removed and they didn't have to be here anymore. And we don't use these for erosion control anymore. I went to the city building, tried to speak to the highest level person that I could, and it took me a couple times going there. I think I went on the second or third time. I finally found someone to speak with. I sat down in an office with him. I explained to him every single thing that I'm telling you right now. And I said that I would like to restart the project, or I would like to have them removed because they don't belong in our redwood forest. I was assured and promised that they would be taken care of. And they're still here a year to 2 years later. This is a perfect example of how someone interfered with my projects and slowed down my potential progress. This is a perfect example of red tape interfering with something that clearly needs to be dealt with and addressed. So here I am doing this project update, showing you that after moving 1,000 tires, there's still 100 to maybe 500 tires buried in this area. It's still showing that the retaining wall is holding up quite well, and our project was stopped for a insignificant reason. So I'm going to walk down here and I'm going to show you a couple more angles, and then I'm going to show you something else that's deeply concerning. So when we would remove these tires, we would dedicate ourselves to it. Some volunteers and myself, invested, as they say, our blood, sweat, and tears to get these tires out of this area. You see there's a tire right there. There's tires. So they're buried and they're interconnected in this landscape. We spent a large amount of time pulling out tires all the way down this ravine where there's sometimes a little trickle of a creek going through in the winter. We dedicated ourselves to doing the right thing, getting these out of the redwood forest for all of those different environmental reasons and dangers that I mentioned. And the project was stopped because of a concerned community, which is understandable, but we don't do things this way anymore, and they still need to be removed. So this project update is basically showing that there's so many environmental issues that we're dealing with throughout our society, and if we constantly are dealing with red tape, it's going to slow down the potential progress that we could be making as a society. And right now, we're not balanced. We're not balanced as a society, and there's a lot of things that are concerning going on around the world in connection to environmental degradation, ecosystem collapse, our global pollution crisis, global warming, different superstorms and stuff in collaboration with climate change, and the melting glacial ice caps and rising ocean sea level. And there's not enough people that are invested in making the world a better place and studying environmental science and trying to address some of these issues. So a couple years ago, I was coming through here and I wanted to see if the tires were still here. It was right before I went on another mission to another country. And this is what I saw. It was fresh when I saw it, and I want you to take this in. So, these trees were recently caught on fire. And it's not as recent now, because it's been a year since I've been down here. But exactly what our concern was in moving these tires happened 20 feet away. So when I first saw that, I got some pictures in my phone or my computer somewhere. All of these leaves on the ground, these redwood leaves, were also burnt. And this isn't, so these fire scars, these marks, the charred areas on these redwood trees, is not from a decade ago or a couple decades ago. This is from a year or two. So there was not a big fire. There was a fire in this area, in this perimeter, that burnt this area. So I guess there's, I'm assuming that there were some homeless people in this area, and somehow they caught this section on fire. Luckily, it didn't spread through the rest of the redwood forest, but it did cover this perimeter, this area right here. So if you can see again, our main concern was these tires polluting where we get our drinking water. And this fire, actually, I was guessing 20 feet, but it looks like it burned even closer. So this fire that hit this area came all the way down to here. And you can see where the tires used to be before we removed them, right next to this this metal piping. So yeah, that's about 10 to 15 feet away. So a fire burnt through this redwood forest right here in this little section, 10 to 15 feet away from where these tires are. And if that happened and there was 1,500 tires here, all of those all those toxic chemicals would have gone into the atmosphere. It would have burned really hot and maybe triggered a larger fire. And it also would have seeped into the dirt and the groundwater and eventually down into our creek. So it's just something that I came across and something that's also really concerning. And it just, so I don't know what my next step is. Maybe this video will get shared. Maybe I'll go back down to the city building and I'll question them why they weren't removed. Why are they still here? And I'll criticize the Masonic Club, and I'll continue to be angry and frustrated and upset that I was doing the right thing. My volunteers were doing the right thing. We didn't have a permit, but not everything is about having a permit. Right now, you can't even go, like, let's say I wanted to go to the San Lorenzo River and be on a little kayak and do a cleanup and pick up trash. I can't, because you got to have a permit for that, or they only allow certain people. So there's a lot of laws and regulations that are good, that help protect the environment. They protect wildlife. They protect nature in different ways. But this isn't one of them. So if I'm too busy to focus on this, I hope someone watches this video and they want to get it done, and they deal with whatever stupid steps they have to go to get a permit. They deal with the county, they criticize the county, they criticize the Masonic Club, and someone comes down here and deals with this issue. There's still 500 tires down here that have to be removed. They don't need to be here anymore. There's a geological study done. They belong to be recycled correctly, and this is a project that has not been complete, that needs to be completed, and hopefully in my lifetime I have the strength to deal with it. But at this point I'm not sure what direction I'm going with my career and my current humanitarian projects and endeavors. But so I hope this video doesn't discourage more people from seeing some trash and taking the steps to organize some volunteers, get a couple sponsors, and doing a cleanup. But this project consumed a few months of my life that I could have been focused on other things that would have helped people or the environment. And well, I don't know if you watched this whole video, but that's the project update. You know, it's been 3 years, so I'm sure that I didn't cover everything. I do want to thank the volunteers that came down here and helped remove these tires, and that dedicated several days in helping, that volunteered their offered up their truck to transport the tires, people that sponsored for food and picked up the food and everything. There was some really good people. Some people even traveled 100 miles away just to help with this project, and that was really wonderful to see. So I guess if I didn't cover anything, I'll mention it in the comment section of this video. And I do have animosity, a lot of animosity towards the Masonic Club for them not only dumping them here, but slowing down my project, and the threats that I got, and some of the criticism and all of that when I had good intentions and I was doing the right thing, and this needed to be done. And I'd like to thank everybody else that participated with this project, and I guess share this video, and I encourage people to try every day to make the world a better place. Thanks for watching. I'm Alex Londos.